Okay. We are live on YouTube. So hello, everybody. Okay. And welcome. We are live on YouTube.
Are you getting feedback?
I am. I just muted us.
Oh.
Sorry about that, y'all. Okay, is that better, everybody? Okay, awesome. Hi, everybody. We are live right now with the Node.js Community Committee for the OpenJS Foundation series or AMAs. And today, again, we'll be talking to the Node.js Community Committee. My name is Rachel Romoff, and I support the OpenJS Foundation for Marketing and Communications. And before we get started with these questions, I think it would be good to jump in and do some introductions with the folks who are joining us today. So I don't know who wants to kick us off, but perfect.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Tony Siren. I'm a senior cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. I'm currently chairperson of the Node.js Community Committee, and I'm involved in various other open source projects, whether it's Electron and their outreach working group. I'm involved in TC39 and also spend a non-trivial amount of time on the OpenJS Foundation. Yeah. Adam, do you want to go next?
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Adam Miller. I'm a software engineer out in San Francisco, previously on helping run design systems at LinkedIn, and most recently for about the last month and a half, and focused full time on political campaign tech, which has been a blast. I'm previously was serving as the chairperson for the community committee until Tierney took over about, how long has it been, Tierney? 2 months? Something like that. Also involved with an assortment of other open source projects, CSS blocks, Vapid. Front end is the name of the game here. So yeah, excited to be talking to y'all. Neil, take it away.
Thanks, Adam. Hi, folks. I'm Manil Chaudhary. I am currently a developer advocate at Envision, previously engineer at Digitalist Global. I am involved in the CommComm as a member since, I believe, early 2018. Prior to that, I started contributing probably in late 2017. And right now I'm involved in a couple of open source communities and initiatives, assortments, some local, some on the interwebs. Glad to be here. Excited to discuss CommComm with all of you folks.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We can jump right into questions, but before we do, for those who have questions for the CommComm, please feel free to drop those in our YouTube chat and we will get to those questions. And so jumping right in, the first question we have is, what is the community committee to Node.js? What is its relationship to the OpenJS Foundation, and what purpose does it serve?
I'll start off this one. So the community committee to Node.js. So I'm going to kind of answer the first one and the last one at the same time. The community committee is intended to help address community-focused things, so outward-facing efforts. So typically, in my perception, the TSC is typically the technical steering committee, so the body that governs a lot of the technical internal sides of Node, whether that's core or the various, I think 160 repos. Some of those are ours, but 100-ish repos that they govern. Those are typically internal facing things, whereas the community committee typically focuses on more external facing things. So this is like mentorship and that initiative, or the website redesign initiative, or the outreach initiative, various other things that are intended to be outward facing. And then in terms of its relationship with the OpenJS Foundation, the Nodejs Community Committee was very active in participating in the transition from the Nodejs Foundation to the OpenJS Foundation, specifically in terms of community and ecosystem impact. That was something that myself and many other folks who are on the CommComm care a lot about. And that's the area that we generally focus in already. And so it was a natural kind of fit for us to be able to participate in that way in the formation of the new foundation. And then on top of that, we currently participate, I believe, 2 members, myself as a regular member, and then Joe Seppi as a voting member from the Nodejs project on the CPC, so the Cross Project Council for the OpenJS Foundation. And so, you know, our goal generally is to help empower the developers who are, you know, in Node.js or who would use Node.js. So that's, you know, according to the NPM statistics, 11 million developers. But you know, empower every single one of those to kind of find more success with JavaScript and with Node.
Yeah, and something that I absolutely love about the Node community is how they have codified in the governance structure this acknowledgement that open source is more than just the source code of the project. Like, it's about the entire community that develops around it, and it's about the entire experience of anybody who engages with it. And the community committee, in my mind, is something there to help usher that community through to fruition is the wrong word, but with some degree of clarity. And so all the projects associated with it are very focused on the people that are engaging with the project, whether it is as a consumer of it, somebody who's using Node for their work or for their side projects or just for fun. Hopefully your side projects are fun, or if it's even contributors in the community. So if you're looking to get onboarded to contribute to core, or if you're looking to get involved in the project in some way that's not actually a code contribution, because I believe the unofficial motto of the community committee is not all contributions are code, and we are there to help facilitate that.
And if any of that sounds good to you, like Tierney mentioned, the CommComm was heavily involved in the transition from the Node.js Foundation to OpenJS, and a lot of the spirit of what CommComm liked bringing to the community was transferred as part of that process. And the continued involvement of some people in CommComm, like Tierney mentioned earlier, it continues to see that.
Awesome. So for the next question is, what are the priorities for CommComm right now?
So this is a good one. We generally around this time kind of come together as a committee at the Collaborator Summit at Node plus JS Interactive to kind of discuss this and end up focusing on building out. Hopefully I'm not lagging too bad. But we end up coming together at Node plus JS Interactive and at the Collaborator Summit and building out, you know, what we're kind of working toward or looking at for next year, or for the kind of whole of the next year until we meet again. So right now we're kind of wrapping up a lot of the things that we you know, started or agreed on last year, and are coming up on that session again. However, there are a few things that we're beginning to do. The OpenJS, you know, Node.js joining the OpenJS Foundation gave us an opportunity to kind of tweak and clean up some of our, you know, existing infrastructure and governance. So we're going through and doing a lot of that right now. Additionally, we're introducing, or I'm hoping we're introducing, but we're working toward introducing, you know, a little bit more structure into how we can actually ensure that our initiatives are successful, and building out more structure on how we can enable that success. Specifically, one of the discussions that I proposed is OKRs for the CommComm, which is inspired by what Electron does. Yeah, we're kind of moving toward being a little bit more lean, a little bit more goal oriented, and that includes, that will trickle down to every single aspect of CommComm, every initiative, whether it's website redesign or mentorship, or social media stuff that we're doing, or various aspects of the work we are already doing.
Yeah, what might be a good way to approach this is just go through the list of working groups and initiatives we have in the CommComm, because there's the CommComm itself meets once every other week for about an hour. I believe it's Thursdays at, I'm not going to give a time because we're all in different time zones, but you can find the times in the community repo in Node.js. But beyond just that governance, core governance of the top level committee, there are so many different working groups and initiatives that you can go and dive into depending on what your preference is. And like Tierney alluded to, we iterate on governance pretty rapidly, which I think we should be very proud of, especially for something of this size. Like the fact that we're able to fairly nimbly tweak our processes to make sure that we're working towards the goals in the most efficient way is spectacular. But even once you get down from that top level of governance structure, which is what the CommComm meeting is about, it's about like how can we clear the pipes for individual contributors for working groups in the CommComm. Once you get beyond that and go down into the individual working groups and initiatives, you get these very granular projects that have very well scoped goals. And Tierney, I love that OKR idea for getting working groups committed to specific deliverables. That's awesome. Yeah, so going through that list will probably be very helpful for folks who are tuning in and just learning a little bit about what we are, what we do. Yeah, and it looks like Tierney, you've opened it up on your end. So
yes, I have.
On the top and talk about each.
So going down that list, we have Internationalization, which is championed by Ben Michel. That project is basically focused on providing better translations and better systems around translating the Node.js docs. We have
not only in the IITN working group, it's not only actually translating content, which is always needed. We're using a service called
Crowdin,
thank you, to actually provide the translation infrastructure. But it's also all the pipes around that. So how do we actually deliver those translations to the website? And so we'll talk about website redesign in a moment, but working closely with IITN to make sure that infrastructure actually works. So if you're interested in that type of content, you can go look up when that working group meeting is and hopefully dive in.
Yep. The next one that we're kind of working on is mentorship. So this is an initiative where we are trying to mentor folks to be able to contribute to Node. So people have signed up independently, and then from there, we've assigned them mentors. We have a very large pool of mentees and perhaps not enough mentors because the pool is so large. But yeah, this is basically focusing on enabling more folks to contribute to Node and getting kind of a little bit more hands-on, like rather than being thrown to the sharks and just kind of go figure it out with the documentation that we have. More approaching it as I'm going to sit down with you and I as a generic person who is a mentor, not me explicitly, but a mentor will sit down with someone and kind of help them get core non-trivial core contributions in.
And it's always a good problem to have when you have more people chomping at the bit to get involved than you have mentors to make it happen. As much as we lament about it, it's a great problem to have.
Yep. The next one is one that, go ahead.
projects that would be very helpful to have more people chomping at the bit would be user feedback, and related to that, enterprise user feedback. Although I believe that enterprise user feedback is far more active than currently the user feedback is. The purpose of those groups are to, well, focus on the process of bringing infrastructure and collaborators for more than just individual user feedback to the project. I believe the champion for that was D. Shaw, although that may have changed recently. Maybe it might be helpful to define what champions are for CommComm. And for our purposes, champions are members of CommComm who focus on basically shepherding an individual initiative forward, basically wrangling people's efforts and issues and pull requests in to move that initiative forward step by step.
Yeah, it's a kind of like most things, it's a hierarchy, tiered structure. So you have the CommComm, which has active sitting members on it, which focus on governance and, again, clearing the pipes. And then individual working groups have a member on them who are tasked with, like Neil said, ushering those initiatives through and providing updates to the larger group. But yeah, the user feedback initiative, like Neil mentioned, is very focused on collecting external feedback. So whether that's from individual users of different types, who host talkback sessions and collect feedback and get the core, or enterprise specific feedback sessions.
Cool. So some of the other initiatives, sorry, going down the list, social media delegates. So this is a very new one that Rachel and myself have been working on. Basically, we've talked about it a bit publicly, so I guess it's talked about it significantly publicly, so it's fine. Yeah, so a to be announced program, basically focusing on enabling more folks to access and help out the Node.js project in different ways. This one specifically is focused on enabling folks, delegates, to help us curate the official Node.js social avenues. So like Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and that stuff. So yeah, basically enabling folks who aren't necessarily already a member of CommComm or TSC or the project otherwise to be able to participate in that way, if they're interested and in social media management, that kind of thing. So yeah. The next one that we have is the Node.js collection, which is the Medium publication we have. Although it is a little bit agnostic of the Medium publication, but the Medium publication is, titled the Node.js collection. It's basically an avenue for us to publish community content and kind of get, provide a platform for folks who aren't core contributors to have to share their content and their interests in Node and their work in Node. Their passion projects or cool things they found or cool things they've built, directly on a official social media channel, in the form of a long form blog post. So yeah, that's the collection. We do have a bunch of work there that's happening. So we're kind of, again, refining it a bit in various ways right now. That work is being done in a PR in the repo, which you can find linked from the Node.js Community Committee repo, which is at github.com/Node.js/community-committee. You can find all these also in, what's that?
We should have led with that one, huh?
We probably should have, yeah. So you can find all the CommComm repos in the Node.js GitHub org. I think community committee is actually also pinned there. So yeah, you can find all of this stuff there. But yeah, that's this Node.js collection specifically is one that's currently in progress. And if anyone's interested in kind of helping out with that, we'd love that help. specifically.
The kind of work involved with the collection is vetting submitted blog posts through Medium. So you submit a request to an email alias for like, here's my long form content, I would love to share it. It goes through a round of editing and vetting from folks who have signed up to ensure that the content there is up to snuff to be broadcast out on the official Node channel. And then after a round of editing and feedback, it gets pulled in and actually published under the Node name with attribution to the author. And you get to leverage the platform that Node has built to help get your content out there. So it's awesome as both a writer and as an editor if you're interested in technical content, to make sure that the ecosystem continues getting this content broadcast out.
Sorry. Additionally, we have the outreach initiative, which I'm switching between Windows and Mac recently, and I cannot get keyboard shortcuts right. So the outreach initiative is largely focused on helping kind of introduce consistent workflows around different avenues of community engagement, specifically like events, content, and contributions, various ways to basically enable more folks to contribute. So, we have a defined set of goals around this. So, one for each of those, the set of goals for each of those specifically. And then from there, we'd love to have more folks involved in this. But, that would basically mean getting involved in helping build out these systems for outreach. So not necessarily, possibly doing the outreach itself, but helping build out the systems and then executing on those systems. So yeah,
the hope for outreach is to help provide a framework for, in terms of, actually, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I'm curious if it's shifted in the past couple of weeks, but my understanding of it was outreach was there to help broadcast the efforts of local organizers who are looking to make meetups happen of local Node users and give them resources so that they can succeed, whether that's actually helping to broadcast the existence of their meetup and document that, or give them resources for how to host a meetup or a hackathon or a mini local conference or whatever you want to call it, and how to what best practices are to organize that and what type of content you can have as you host. So it's very focused around the infrastructure there.
It sounds like the evolution of the outreach initiative is a good example of how people who participate and come on board can influence the direction of how an initiative takes form. So recently we had some new contributors, and by recently I mean like probably over the past half a year, who joined the outreach initiative and basically took in a direction that they thought people in the community would find the most value. And that was, I believe, how Adam was just describing it.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yeah, and they've recently kind of expanded it a bit. In addition to the events, they've begun discussing how they can do the same kind of work for content and for contributions as well. So, yeah. And very much to what Manil was saying, these are folks who reached out to a CommComm member and asked, how can I get involved? And they are now involved both directly in initiatives, and one of them is a community member, Ahmad. So yeah, this is, this initiative specifically is a very good illustration of how, if you're interested, if you want to help contribute to the community committee and kind of the loose community efforts around Node.js, or you have an idea or something that you'd like to do to help, the Node.js community or ecosystem, and it doesn't necessarily have to be to help it grow, but just to help it. You're more than empowered and able to do that, and we would love to be able to help you do that. And this is, the outreach is a very good example of that.
I want to emphasize that point. Open source is made and run and created by those who show up. And so if you want to get involved, if you think this is exciting, if you think contributing to Node would be amazing, then come into one of the meetings. they're all open. It's Zoom chats like this. You just go download the client. It's free, and you can come and get engaged. And honestly, it's just getting started. That's the hardest part, is to call into your first meeting. But I have not met somebody in this community I don't like yet, and would love to have you in any of these initiatives.
Yeah.
And I have a question to pose in response to that. So if someone were to come along and say, hey, I'd like to join the meetings, but I have nothing to contribute at this point, how would you respond?
I would respond by saying, you're more than welcome to join. You're more like, regardless of whether or not you have something to contribute, you're more than welcome to come and sit in on the meetings. You can talk or not. It's fine, either one. We would love to have you. One request that I will make, we do have a weekly issue, or sorry, bi-weekly issue that goes up that gives kind of all the details about the meeting. Just commenting in that and saying you're joining, because we have two links. We have the live stream link and the Zoom link, and people sometimes get confused which one they like, if they want to watch, which one they should be using. So just commenting in that issue, so I know to kind of add you to the meeting. I got a cough, hold on. Adding you to this, knowing that I can add you to the meeting, that you're interested in participating, that would be super helpful. And just commenting that once, I will know from then on to add you, or whoever is running the meeting will know from then on to add you. So yeah, just, feel free to join, listen, give feedback. You don't have to talk in the meeting, but we'd love your feedback on the meetings, whether it's during or after, or offline or whatever. And yeah, come participate and let us know how we can help you kind of engage and contribute.
If you think you don't have anything to contribute, I may humbly propose that you are wrong. Everybody has something to contribute to this community. It's a community built by its members from the ground up. So come engage if you want to be a part of it. You are more than welcome.
I believe we have one last initiative.
Oh,
website redesign.
Check.
Yeah.
Quick welcome check before we do website redesign.
Yeah.
Tierney mentioned bi-weekly issues. That issue is an issue that's created in the community-committee repository in the Nodejs organization. That's an issue that we use as an anchor for meetings. So that will usually be your source of truth for anything that you'd like to refer to when trying to find a meeting. It'll have the Zoom link. It'll have the YouTube live stream. It'll have details about what's going to be discussed, and it'll have comments by people who plan to attend the meeting about anything related to it.
And fun meta process note, these issues are automatically created by a script we have running on the Node organization in GitHub itself. Not only for the community committee repo, but for all of these initiatives which have dedicated repositories. They also have their own individual meetings. You can find the link to the meeting calendar. I believe it's in the CommComm README, right in the root. And these meeting issues get generated on the Monday before the meeting happens, I believe. And it automatically pulls in content tagged with GitHub labels for generating that meeting agenda. So wonderfully automated, because we're all engineers at the end of the day. Well, most of us are engineers at the end of the day, and if we can automate a problem, we'll find a way to do it. So it's quite the smooth system.
Awesome. Do you all want to get into website redesign?
Let's do. I can dive in on that. So website redesign is near and dear to my heart. It is exactly what it sounds like. We are redesigning the website. And it's actually how I got involved in the community committee over a year and a half ago now. Wow, time flies. Yeah, so it's another great example of a way you can just show up and make the impact you want. I was at one of the Node+JS interactive meetings a long time ago. I thought, wow, this documentation is a little rough. Let's fix it. Started coming to meetings, and go figure, started helping. I'm actually the champion for the website redesign initiative. So again, open source is made by those who show up. So come and join. But the website redesign is exactly what it sounds like. We are rebuilding websites from the ground up, making it a bit more approachable for both new engineers and useful for experience or for folks who are heavily experienced in Node, and to meet all those use cases. So we have an awesome design that we're working off of. Thank you, Oscar Gonzalez. Shout out. And we are actively rebuilding it in that website redesign repo. Caveat on the repo names, website redesign, we used to be split between two. One was where we were building the site, one was where we were doing admin stuff. It was confusing for new contributors. We've consolidated all efforts into the Nodejs.dev repo. And the website redesign repo itself was archived. So if you want to get involved, go to github.com/nodejs/nodejs.dev. That's where all the fun stuff is happening.
Awesome. Anything else on initiatives and working groups that we want to touch on?
One quick thing for Adam. What are you using to rebuild the website?
Yep. We are building it out in Gatsby. So giant static site. It is all the documentation content is getting pulled from markdown files that are actually committed. Most of them are committed to core proper and get built out using Remark for more like learn page documentation. Those are committed directly to the repo at the moment. Yeah, so it's an awesome place to contribute if you love Node, are more of a front end engineer, not a lot of experience in server side JS code, but still want a way to dive into the community. So we are actively looking for contributors. So come get your hands dirty in the Gatsby project. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Oh, and if you're interested in internationalization, that's also a way to get involved with the website redesign, because I think it was mentioned before that internationalization is there to enable other parts of Node.js to consume the right content. And that's a work in progress, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah, yes, it is. We're just trying to think, architect ways to get translated content quickly and easily into the Gatsby project and deployed out in a way that is sensible and reasonable. So things are changing. The internationalization pipeline will have to change a little bit from how it's been the past, how long has the old website been up? 5 years, however long it's been. And we are just re-architecting that solution right now. So another awesome place to jump in and help contribute.
Awesome.
Yeah, call out me now.
So we talked a lot about working groups and initiatives. Is there a difference between the
Mr. Governance? I think Tyranny can can take that one.
Working groups are a concept in the TSC. They exist solely in the TSC. In CommComm, we only have initiatives. This was done intentionally because working groups have their own governance, and they are self-governed. So basically, to spin up or spin down working groups, they have to self-decharter. So they have to basically implode themselves and into non-existence, which for CommComm, we initially thought that would, just copy pasting that structure would make sense. For the work that we do, having that like long-term longevity of specific initiatives governed by the initiatives themselves didn't really make sense. So we went down the path of just having initiatives. So initiatives are still a part of the CommComm. The CommComm is kind of the overseeing body, and its goal is to kind of never need to or directly engage with the initiatives. However, it will do whatever it needs to when the initiatives asks, or to enable the success of the initiatives. We are basically in an administrative body. So in that context, the initiatives are kind of self-driving, but having an initiative-only approach allows us to, I see Adam having critiques of what I'm saying. Having an initiative-only approach allows us to kind of be a little bit more dynamic with how we approach these things.
No critiques, just stuff to add. I think it's very, very important to note that you do not need to be a member of the community committee to partake in an initiative. The initiatives, like Tierney said, are self-sufficient. Ideally, the community committee does not need to know what's going on day to day in an initiative. Community committee is there to get rid of roadblocks and get resources to people who need it, if that is required for an initiative. But otherwise, we just get regular updates every other week, and initiatives are self-governing, self-functioning. So yeah, something I've seen in a lot of new contributors is this idea that they need to actually join the community committee in order to partake in any of these initiatives. Unless you are a governance nerd and you are, you want to go get into the nitty-gritty of how open source governance works and how a service body can help unblock contributors, then you don't want to be on the community committee. You want to be diving into one of these individual initiatives, because that's where the actual work on content happens.
Awesome. So how would somebody not involved in the CommComm propose an initiative? I mean, we talked a lot about how to get involved. Are there kind of is it a step-by-step or a couple of key things that someone can do?
So go ahead.
Just to use a recent example, of a contributor or a person who was, for the most part, an observer, I believe, in several CommComm meetings or several months of CommComm meetings, but was quite interested in a certain aspect of the work. They eventually proposed something via an issue, which they opened, I believe, in the CommComm repository, and that has taken more and more of a life, and eventually, I believe, could spin off into an initiative of its own, although I don't believe it has yet. But that is an example of a person who started off being an observer, not a member of the CommComm, an observer who attended meetings, asked some questions to clarify certain things, and eventually opened an issue, which they then brought back to the CommComm, and this time said, hey, I have opened this issue, can we discuss this? And that was only the first of several times that they then proposed discussing that subject at a CommComm meeting. So as an observer, they were able to open an issue, add it to the agenda for CommComm meetings multiple times, during which CommComm members discussed it, other participants discussed it, and I think there are several action items now related to that issue, which is now in flight.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, basically, the kind of way to get involved with CommComm and creating an initiative, at that level, would be to go ahead and create an issue. That's step one. In that issue, write out kind of a detailed explanation of what you're proposing, what you'd like to see, what the kind of outcomes you'd like to see are, and then how you propose we could achieve that, and what you'd like to see in both contributors to it and the results that the community or CommComm or XYZ target audience that you're interested in helping would get out of it. So that's the main thing, is just documenting that well. And documenting that well can be a paragraph. It could be 10 pages. The length isn't necessarily quality. So I do just want to assert that. But yeah, making sure that you're just kind of sharing your thoughts on why this thing would be useful, and why you are passionate about it and why you want to see it happen.
And the only thing we really ask is that there's a concrete mission and well-defined deliverables, which Tierney, I'm excited to see codified in OKRs. so that we can actually be driving towards some type of success metric. You know, the initiative should have a goal in mind and a way in which they think that can be achieved. But yeah, open the issue, come as an observer to CommComm meetings, bring it up with some of the members. We can discuss it in the open sessions of the CommComm meeting, and it evolves from there.
Awesome.
I think we mentioned before that the initiatives are pretty much self-governing. CommComm doesn't get involved except only to unblock, and by that it means that the initiative was somehow, the participants and the champion in that initiative, they were somehow unable to come to a consensus around something. So they then elevated that particular disagreement or point of discussion up to the CommComm, at which point the CommComm probably provided some sort of guidance to also help come to consensus, which is basically how we resolve most disagreements or discussions at all. One other way that I see the CommComm probably help out or get involved would be if something were proposed, but the people who are getting involved didn't necessarily have the context to move that forward, then people on the CommComm who tend to have more experience being involved in the Node project than a new participant, they would then add some context or say add historical context to an initiative saying, hey, maybe this had been tried out in a different form sometime before, or hey, other people you might want to reach out to because they would be interested, but don't have the time to necessarily kick this off. You should reach out to those folks. That might be one way where the CommComm could add value, also without actually treading on autonomy.
Exactly how the website redesign initiative got kicked off. As I started engaging, it had been started and shut down a couple times, in spurts before. And I at the Node.js Interactive, I met with a few members, chatted with them on the side, tagged them on Twitter, found them in Slack, whatever, and opened up a proposal to get it started again in CommComm. An existing CommComm member at the time was like, yeah, it's a good idea, and it got spun up again. So it's there may be prior art to base what you're doing off of. It could be an entirely new and novel idea, but that all comes from just communicating it openly on GitHub. Everything that we do, nearly everything that we do, we try and do in the open, so that anybody can dive in and contribute. So GitHub issues are the lifeblood of organizing in the project here, where all the members live for the most part, and yeah, dive in.
Awesome, super helpful. So on the CommComm README, there are multiple levels of participation. Can you give an overview of each sort of level of participation? So you've talked about observers and members and all that stuff, and then potentially, rough estimate of time commitment, just so that, for folks who may want to dive in can kind of have some context around what it would look like for their day-to-day.
Yeah, so just coming in and joining the meetings, that's, an hour a week. Well, not an hour. Well, we have a new thing this week that we're starting, but an hour every other week is the time commitment for coming and joining the meetings and listening in and participating in that way. So that's hopefully a low barrier. Those meetings happen every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And then there's a timetable in that issue that we were talking about earlier that kind of it has a more diverse set of time zones other than the ones I've memorized. But coming and joining that is the kind of lowest barrier commitment in terms of time. Additionally, ramping up from that, you're starting to scale out into asynchronous communication where you're participating in issues and things like that, participating in initiatives, which is however much time you want. That can be 5 minutes, or that can be 20 hours a week, I guess, if someone can justify that. You can spend as much time on that as you're really able or willing. From there, membership is a little bit more. So membership is involved in a lot of things. So we were, for an example, when we were doing the OpenJS Foundation merger, that was a lot of time that a lot of people spent on that. That was, on like the averaging the highs and lows, probably about 5 to 10 hours a week, I'd guess, over 8 to 10 weeks. So it was a non-trivial amount of time. Some people spent 30 or 40, some people spent 1 or 2, but it's still a non-trivial commitment when things come up. We do often have, it's not consistent, it's a fluctuation. There's times when we're doing like governance work that has to be done, and that ends up being a little bit more of a time sink. There's other times where we have a little bit of a relaxed time frame, I guess you could say, and that's maybe for an average member 2-3 hours a week. So it really is a scale, and it still is kind of how much you can and want to put into it. But there is kind of a minimum level of commitment to becoming a member, or being a member and becoming a member. That is probably like, I'd say maybe on average 4 or 5 hours a week. And largely that is a little bit high. I mean, that's, what, like an 1/8 of a work week. So, it's worth putting it a little bit higher, because there are times when it gets a little bit more intense.
And there's 3 distinct words that are often thrown around to help describe a lot of these levels of participation. Some with actual implications on like being able to commit directly to the project repo, and some that are more a little bit fuzzy. 3 levels, the 3 words often thrown around to describe those levels are observers, contributors, and collaborators. So observers are what it sounds like you come, show up, you hang out in a meeting, you get a feel for it, but it's you haven't necessarily committed any code or any documentation, or have created something and contributed it to the project proper. You're there mostly as just to see what's going on. A contributor is literally anybody who contributes. So if you have any bit of code that has landed in a repository, if you have any bit of documentation, if you have any bit of anything, congrats, you're a contributor. And a collaborator is somebody who has been around for a while. They've actually started getting known in the community and the organization, and you are added as a member to one of these repos, whether it's an initiative or CommComm itself. Those are 3 words often thrown around, and Tierney reminded me kindly in the chat that observer technically doesn't exist anymore, but we still often use the word. So it's good to have a vestigial word from old governance, but the classification still has meaning in a lot of members' minds, and so we use it's good to know the terminology if it's thrown around.
For sure. People coming from corporate land / like work land, probably it might be difficult for folks to understand why we give people, or like why people have roles that are somehow related to time commitment. And that's because open source is how was it phrased before? It's it's done by people who show up. So no like the vast majority of people aren't paid to do this, so it's whatever time commitment people can put in. And it's a lot to ask for someone to commit a certain amount of time. And oftentimes, even if you do commit some time to it, that can drop off based on life stuff happening. Yeah. So by design, the expectations are like flexible. So the minimum amount of time commitment is flexible based on what's happening in the context of the project and what's happening in the context of people's lives. And so those are not hard requirements. Those are requirements that are meant to help the project shepherd along its initiatives. Because another thing is, Node.js it's a product, but it's not a product that's a business. So you can't have leadership dictating goals, then everyone like jumps to it and makes it happen. It's the community creates those goals for itself and tries to live up to it based on the amount of time that the community members can put towards those goals. And because that bandwidth is subject to so many other factors, what ends up getting done can be very variable. And the structure of the project is designed to account for that.
Yeah, something I've very much appreciated about the Node project is the lack of stigma associated with this ebb and flow of contribution that everybody has. Like, it does not matter who you are. There's going to be times where you can put more in, and there's going to be times where you need to back off and focus on other priorities. And it's, you know, the project is happy and excited to take whatever you're able to contribute, but there's been such a good understanding from community members for when you need to back away. You know, speaking personally, you know, early on, I was personally able to dedicate a lot of time. You know, I helped run and organize a lot of stuff on the community committee. More recently, literally the past 2 months, I've had a lot of other project work going on, so I've had to step back. And yet, I feel like there's, because of this governance and because of this accommodation for not only the natural ebb and flow of the project itself, but the ebb and flow of individual contributors, it is accommodated for in how the entire project operates. And so, as a contributor, you are able to kind of choose your own adventure for how you contribute, and the project will accommodate to make it happen.
Awesome. So we've got about 7 more minutes left. I think that's plenty of time to get through these last few questions. So the next question is, why would I participate and contribute to the CommComm?
Looking for community.
Yeah, so there's a few things here, I think. You know, one, you like Node, and you want to kind of help grow its community. I know that that's part of why I begun engaging with Node. One or another is that you know, this is a good avenue for non-technical contributions. Just like as a personal thing, I started contributing to Node when IOJS forked out, because of a blog post that Michael Rogers wrote, where he said, you know, non-technical contributions are welcome. And that made me come and contribute, which is, you know, why I got a job in this and a bunch of other things. Long story, but you know, this is a very good avenue for those who want to do non-technical contributions or have time to do non-technical contributions, to be able to do that. And that's something that I have consistently seen Node and IOJS, you know, Node evolving from that to value. And I'm happy that we've been able to kind of codify a little bit more of a strict path for that, or like a broader committee for that. That doesn't mean that the things the community committee does aren't technical or aren't code, but there are plenty of avenues for non-technical and non-code contributions to occur. Additionally, I think that there are certain people who are interested in community and who are interested in events, or who are interested in you know, different aspects of technology that aren't necessarily just community. And the community is in Node is a codification of the project's value, valuing that kind of work. And so it's a good place for people who are like that to come and participate in the project at a higher level in that way.
And it very much depends on your personal priorities. Like I do feel that two-pronged split. Like, either I've seen a lot of people who are in it because they love Node, they use it day to day. It's their you know, it's both professionally and in their passion projects. It's their, you know, the foundation that they build on, and they want to give back in some way. There's a lot of people who are just in love and dedicated with creating these open, inclusive, and productive spaces. and see Node and this project and the infrastructure that we've built and codified around how to make that happen and how to iterate on how to make that happen. See that as a great platform to scratch that itch, as it were, to help build those types of communities. Yeah, so if either of those resonates with you, then you're probably a good fit for diving in somewhere in the CommComm.
One thing to note is that with the type of interest work in CommComm can attract, it is helpful to know that it's non-zero sum, in that if you jump in and contribute into something that interests you, you are then able to create more opportunity for other people to also jump in and do much of the same. Because usually something that you try to kick off or something that you try to contribute to can then expand with your help. And other people will then have an opportunity to participate in the same things you're interested in, which is probably how community gets created. It's a sort of gravity. The more people join, the bigger the gravity, and more people are able to jump in as well.
I really like that. That's awesome. So in the final few minutes here, this is, what are the areas where the CommComm could use more involvement? And what are the avenues for folks to get involved, which I know we've talked about a lot, but one more plug for involvement, it's always a good thing. So
one thing on involvement, if you are interested in getting involved but still, we provided a bunch of avenues to do it but still aren't sure, please feel free to reach out to us. Any of us, I think, would be willing to talk, but I have open DMs on the OpenJS Foundation Slack, Twitter. You can reach out to me publicly, or I have open DMs again. Feel free to reach out to us in any way that you are comfortable, and we'd be more than happy. At least I would be, and I don't want to speak for Minil and Adam, but I have a strong feeling that they'd be okay with it too. We're happy to help you get involved however you're interested, and it's I'm happy to spend time helping you get involved in the ways that you're able and interested.
DMs are definitely a good way to reach out. My DMs are typically open. They're closed for unrelated reasons right now, but they're typically open, and I'm definitely willing to help guide people in the right direction. Also, the Node.js, the Twitter handle itself tends to tweet out opportunities for people to jump in. So that's very helpful because it watches a lot of contributors or community members and amplifies their voice about saying, hey, come join us. We're doing some work here.
Yeah, I will add a third. Heck yes, my DMs are open on Twitter. Come message me. I will caveat that with, I am occasionally bad at responding. Please double tap with the with the messages. It is nothing personal. I want to talk to you. Just, send me a reminder if I don't get back right away, and that goes for all of us. But yeah, we will be happy to help triage you to where your interests are best suited, either in CommComm or elsewhere in the project, and also just come show up. We listed off a bunch of working groups. They are listed in the main README of the CommComm repo. We link out directly to the repositories where those, sorry, not working groups, initiatives, loose terminology, where those initiatives are actually doing their active work in that README. And if you're still unsure about where to start, open up an issue, say you're excited to contribute, and we can help you get going there. And we'll be happy to help. Although, try and find the, do some due diligence, find the repo that you think you're going to be interested in engaging with, read through the existing issues, drink from the drink from the fire hose for a second of content on GitHub. Comes fast, but it's a lot of valuable pre-existing work, and again, it's done by the people who show up. So come make yourself known and come join us.
Awesome. Well, we are just about out of time. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add before we close this one out?
I think we're good.
I think I've said it all. We
Awesome.
want you. Come help.
Thank you all so much for your time and your expertise in this area. And thanks for everyone who tuned in. We'll get this posted on the OpenJS Foundation blog, and we'll get it tweeted out. So for folks who maybe didn't have a chance to catch this live, you'll have a chance to rewatch it. And yep, so everyone have a awesome day, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to stop the live stream.